Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about something huge, anxiety. And more importantly, we're going to break down a powerful science-backed way to manage it called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. We're going to get into how it works, why it's so effective, and how you can actually use it to rewire your brain's response to fear.
So, to really get what we're talking about, let's start with a story. Picture this guy, right? He gets a little nervous giving presentations at work. His heart starts pounding, his palms get sweaty. You know the feeling. So he starts asking his coworkers to cover for him. And at first, it's such a relief. But then, that fear starts to creep into other areas. One-on-one meetings, then even just dinner with friends, until his whole world just starts to shrink.
And that right there, that's the classic anxiety trap. You feel that spike of fear, you dodge the thing that's causing it, and you get this little moment of relief. But here's the thing, and this is so important. That relief accidentally teaches your brain that avoidance is the only way to stay safe. So over time, you're not actually getting less scared. The fear is growing. You're just reinforcing the whole cycle. So that's the big question, isn't it? If we want to get out of the trap, we first have to understand the machine that's running the whole program. Why on earth does our brain get so stuck on a threat that might not even be real? Okay, let's get into it. Anxiety at its very core is a survival tool. It's your brain's alarm system, and it's built to protect you from, saber-toothed tigers. The problem starts when that alarm system gets a little glitchy, and it starts going off when there's no real fire. And think about how fast this whole process is. It's practically instant. Some kind of trigger, could be a thought, a feeling, anything. It hits your thalamus, which is kind of like the brain's newness detector. From there, a signal flashes over to the amygdala, the danger monitor. If the amygdala thinks there's a threat, it zaps a message to the hypothalamus, which then unleashes that whoosh of adrenaline. That's the fight or flight response. Your heart races, you start to sweat, and all of this happens before your logical brain even has a chance to catch up. This is where the faulty smoke detector analogy is just perfect. You absolutely need a smoke detector in case there's a real fire. But when you have an anxiety disorder, it's like your smoke detector is so sensitive that it just shrieks every single time you burn your toast. The alarm feels real, but the danger just isn't there. And this is the absolute key distinction we have to make, the difference between a true alarm and a false one. So a deer jumps out in front of your car, that adrenaline surge, that's a lifesaver. That's a true alarm. But when you get that exact same physical reaction because you just think about giving a presentation, well, that's a false alarm. The danger isn't out there in the world, it's an internal thing. It's just a thought. So if the alarm system is faulty, how do you fix it? Well, that is where the CBT toolkit comes into play. It's a collection of really practical, proven tools that are designed to help you recalibrate and literally rewire your response to these false alarms. CBT is all about building skills. It's not about endlessly analyzing your childhood. It's a really structured, hands-on approach where you learn to spot and then challenge the thoughts and behaviors that are just feeding that anxiety cycle. And by doing that, you fundamentally change your relationship with the emotion itself. Now here's something that might actually surprise you. Our natural instincts for dealing with anxiety, they often make things way worse. Things like, constantly asking for reassurance, trying to distract ourselves, or just avoiding the situation altogether, they feel like they're helping in that moment. But what they're actually doing is reinforcing the brain's belief that the anxiety was dangerous and that you couldn't handle it. They're short-term fixes that just make the long-term problem stronger. Which, of course, leads to the big question. If all of our gut reactions are actually wrong, what's the right way to respond? What is going to break this cycle for good? Well, the answer is a technique that's considered the absolute gold standard for treating anxiety. It's called exposure and response prevention, or ERP for short, and it's basically the master key to unlocking that anxiety trap. ERP is all about doing the exact opposite of what your anxious brain is screaming at you to do. It's this process where you intentionally and gradually face the situations or thoughts that you're afraid of. But, and this is the most important part, you do it without resorting to any of your old safety behaviors, like running away or asking someone if everything's okay. And this brings us to a really crucial shift in how we think about this. The goal of ERP isn't to make sure you never feel anxious again. I mean, that's impossible. The real goal is to build up your tolerance for the feeling, to learn how to ride the wave of anxiety without it totally knocking you over. You're teaching your brain through direct experience that you can handle it. So what does this actually look like in real life? Well, you start by making something called a fear hierarchy. You just list out your triggers, from the least scary to the absolute most terrifying, and you rate them on a scale of 0 to 10. And here's the key. You don't start at the top. If you're afraid of heights, you're not getting on a plane on day one, no way. You start with something manageable, like maybe climbing a small lookout tower, and you stay in that situation until the anxiety naturally starts to come down on its own. You're proving to your brain that the false alarm eventually turns itself off.
But here's the best part of this whole process. It's not about being in therapy forever. The ultimate goal is so much more empowering. It's about you learning a set of skills so that you can become your own therapist, fully equipped to handling anxiety whenever it decides to show up.
There's this great line from one of the sources that just captures this idea perfectly. It says that a good CBT therapist's goal is to work us out of a job. The whole point of the therapy is to give you the tools and the knowledge you need to manage your own mind.
So how do you make all this progress last? It really comes down to a few key principles. First, you have to learn to take credit for your successes. You also have to accept that recovery isn't just a straight line up. There are going to be setbacks. But you start to see those setbacks not as failures, but as chances to practice your new skills. And you always keep your eye on the prize, living a full, rich life that isn't dictated by fear.
So we'll just leave you with this final thought. By understanding your brain's false alarms and learning how to face them with these new tools, you really can change your relationship with anxiety. It doesn't have to be in the driver's seat anymore. Which, makes you wonder, what would you do, where would you go if fear was no longer in charge?